Well, hello there. How are you doing, Scraps? Don't you dare do the thing with the camera where it flops around as my hands. Today we're going to be talking about Daughter from the Dark, wrote by Serhiy and Marina Dyachenko. I think that's correct. And the narrations was by Adam Werner. So in the past we've covered books by this couple before that's been translated, and they're unique, they're good. Of course they're not authors from the area that I live in America, but I like the way that they tell their stories. They're so much different from what my culture seems to pump out like pulp. The narration is fairly good for this book and the style of this book. The person that they picked, Adam Werner, he did a really good job with it. Sometimes whenever you read authors, you'll feel like they were just recycling some of the material that they have. That kind of is a gripe for me. I can understand this is my style, this is the way that I write, and I write in the same genre. Let's not be lazy about it, huh? Because if you're writing in the same genre and it's the same character, just a different name, we will figure it out. Yes, we will. We're a bunch of smart people. We know what's up. Yep. Anyhow, so the narration was good. The production, of course, was good. I just saw it pop up in my feed, and I was like, ooh, another book from them. I want it now. So I got it, and I've not been disappointed. It is certainly sci-fi, and it's more of a dark sci-fi than anything. The premises of the book is kind of unique. This guy is coming home from work, and it's evening or party or something. I forget what it was, but he was coming home, and there was these kids that were beating up on a little girl. He ends up taking the little girl back to his apartment, and everybody's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And, I mean, that's a valid thing, too. I mean, if you're a single man in the world today and you find a, third grader, fourth grader that's being beat up, okay, sure, you might step in and help them out and then get them to an authority type figure. And because of today's society, you would probably record the whole thing on your phone so that you could say, look, my intentions were pure. I never did anything I wasn't supposed to. I didn't touch the person, just for a little bit of CYA, because unfortunately that's where we are. It's phenomenal how much you have to do in that regard. But on the same token, who in their right mind would find a little girl that's getting beat up, save her, and then take her back to their apartment? That's kind of weird, right? I thought so too. And that kind of threw me off kilter, and I think that was the whole point of that scene, was to set the book up. And it was really well done, because then she starts talking this stuff that seems really weird, like, why would you do this? Where am I from? It's phenomenally different from things that I've read in this country. The setup and the people that are involved, the characters that are involved in the story, some of them are kind of supernatural, but it doesn't tell you exactly what they are. And I like that. There's something to be said about the whole Alfred Hitchcock way of telling a story or showing a story, where you make hints and allusions to what the monster is, but you don't actually show it. I think that the psychological terror of some things are actually a whole lot more frightening than a $2 million budget for CGI, because it lets my imagination run wild of what is this, what's its capabilities, what can it really do. So this guy gets wrapped in. He has to take care of this little girl because her dad, which really isn't her dad, but just kind of like, think of him as like a demigod that runs a different place altogether. And so he gives Aspirin, DJ Aspirin, interesting name, sure, gives him an opportunity to say, no, I don't want this person in my life. I don't want them around. And he screws up. He, instead of just letting her go back to where she belongs, he's all like, I'm going to all of a sudden have white knight syndrome, and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say, no, you can't have her. I took her in. I care for her. And then he's given the birth certificate that didn't exist before. It was unique. It was weird. It was kind of cool to see. And that's the whole thing about the story, is this story is so phenomenally tilted. Interactions between him and this little girl that's not really a little girl, but it's never said that she's not a little girl, is just different. The relationship is not really functional at all, because there's this big resentment on his part towards her for being in his life in the first place, and his mistake of just not saying no. He's got this really unique friend, I think his name was Whiskers or Whispers. He's kind of the type that he's a conspiracy nut, and everything has a reason. There's always a line to connect everything. If you just look in the right place, you'll find it. Trust me, you'll find it. And you'll see how the big ketchup industry, no, I'm playing, but that's the type of person that he is. And there's all these oddities in it. Like the little girl writes a story and sends it into a sci-fi / conspiracy theory type of a place, and it gets published. And people read it that actually know him, and then they come to him and they're like, this person just isn't quite right. And is this true? Because I saw the aftermath of this. There's a detective that's involved because he's like, hey, look, the first time that you got robbed and then people were torn apart, that was maybe coincidental. The second time that it happened, okay, so you got some bad luck. The third time, not so much, right? There's all this interplay like that where this Aspirin is a very shady person in the way that he's conducting his life. He's very much a womanizer, but it really doesn't get into those details. You'll know that he has had relationships with people because it'll say it. It'll say, like he met up at this party with these people, they were taking their clothes off, and this was happening and this was happening, but it doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of the details, and that was kind of appreciated. And the reason why is because if every partner he has in this book was described and there was a sex scene in it, it'd be longer than some of Stephen King's earlier writings. It's just such an interesting, make you feel uncomfortable story. Then there's the horror elements, and then there's the stuff about the music, which is kind of unique and again different. And I've got to the point where I really wouldn't expect anything other than that from these two authors, because if we look back at some of the other works from them that we've read, those stories were incredibly like that, but without the same characters. So it's nice. It's good to see. As far as how long it is, it's almost 10 hours long altogether. And it doesn't feel like that, though. It could be because there's a rhythm inside of this book, which kind of ties into the whole musicality aspects of this little girl that has sometimes forgot her name and goes with a name that really, you'd have to read it to get that part of it. But it's kind of fun. It's kind of a unique and different kind of a read. It's a little bit unsettling for sure, because there's points where she'll say things, or Aspirin will think things that would be very appropriate for that situation. He's been concerned that she's just pretty much a little person that's going to try to blackmail him into whatever. And there's points where she kind of does lord sorts of things like that over his head whenever he starts to become an absolute crap towards her. The last review that I did was for Ender's Game, right? Which was again about children. But this book just randomly popped up in the feed, so maybe it might not have been quite so random, right? But I'm glad that I got to read another book from these two authors, because it's been a really unique ride. From stuffed teddy bears that might not be what they seem, to strings on violins that have special properties, to being able to play music that would actually create a person. Yes, it is that unique. So what are some of the feelings that I got from this? What did it bring out in me? Wow, a whole lot of, oh God, I really don't want it. Let's be honest. But that doesn't mean it's not good. It really is, because if they're able to keep me feeling off base the entire time that I'm listening to this and or reading it, that's really good. Another thing that it brought out is just curiosity of how the story is going to wrap up, because maybe this entity that we met in the beginning is going to do something, or maybe the bear that may be a teddy bear or something more or whatever. What if it is that other person? Or what if she's actually able to play the music she wants to play? It's very unique to see how this story could end, and there's so many possibilities for it, because one thing that Serhiy and Marina are really good at is the unexpected in their writings, and that is very much appreciated. So lastly, appreciation. Now it's time for the question of the week. If by chance, and this is just a morality check for everybody that's on this channel, our little channel, our place to hang out and talk about some books, if you happen to find a little girl that was getting beat up and she didn't have a home, would you take her back to your apartment? It's kind of one of those things of, usually when there's something that improbable in a story, I just immediately discount it. What's your feelings on that? Have you ever read a book that had something so improbable in the beginning of it that it was actually a hook that got you to get into the story? And this is the most interesting comment that we found this week. Thank you so much for that. It's so much appreciated. Keep them coming. I appreciate it. Always feel free, down there in the comment section, let us know. Like, share, subscribe. This is Shane with Shane's Reviews. I hope you had a wonderful week. Be safe in your upcoming week. I can't wait to see you next Friday. Beyond that, I'm not sure which one of these two videos you'll pick if you do, but if you do pick one of these two, then I will see you in the next video. Peace.